Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to today's reading from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. We have been reading from the Madhya Lila and we shall be commencing from verse 31. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tamham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Caitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. तभे प्रभु वजे पठाइला रूप सनातन प्रभु आज्ञाया or is it Ajnaya Dui Bhai Aila Vrindavana. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then sent the two brothers Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami to Vraja. By his order they went to Sri Vrindavan Dham. Verse number 32. Bhakti Paracharya Sarva Tirtha Prakashila Madan Gopal Govindera Seva Pracharila. After going to Vrindavan, the brothers preached devotional service and discovered many places of pilgrimage. They specifically initiated the service of Madan Mohan and Govindji. Verse number 33. Nana Shastra Ani Kaila Bhakti Grantha Sar Mudha Adhama Janere Tenho Karila Nistar. Both Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami brought various scriptures to Vrindavan and collected the essence of these by compiling many scriptures on devotional service. In this way, they delivered all rascals and fallen souls. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada says in this purport, Srila Srimad Acharya has sung Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipunau Sadharma Samsthapakau Lokanam Hitkarino Tribhuvane Manayo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Anandena Mattalikau Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghu Yugo Shri Jiva Gopalakau. The six Goswamis, under the direction of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami, studied various Vedic literatures and picked up the essence of them, the devotional service of the Lord. This means that all the Goswamis wrote many scriptures on the devotional service with the support of the Vedic literature. Devotional service is not a sentimental activity. The essence of Vedic knowledge is devotional service, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 15.15. Vedesh cha sarver aham eva vedyah. All the Vedic literature aims at understanding Krishna, and how to understand Krishna through devotional service has been explained by Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis with evidence from all Vedic literatures. They have put it so nicely that even a rascal or first-class fool can be delivered by the devotional service under the guidance of the Goswamis. Verse 34. Prabhu Ajnaya Kaila Sabha Shastrera Vichara Vrajera Nigudha Bhakti Karila Prachar. The Goswamis carried out the preaching work of devotional service on the basis of an analytical study of all confidential Vedic literatures. This was in compliance with the order of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus one can understand the most confidential devotional service of Vrindavan. The purport goes like this. This proves that bona fide devotional service is based on the conclusions of the Vedic literature. It is not based on the type of sentiment exhibited by Prakrit Sahajiyas. The Prakrit Sahajiyas do not consult the Vedic literatures, and they are debauchees, woman hunters and smokers of ganja. Sometimes they give a theatrical performance and cry for the Lord with tears in their eyes. Of course, all scriptural conclusions are washed off by these tears. The Prakrit Sahajiyas do not realize that they are violating the orders of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who specifically said that to understand Vrindavan and the pastimes of Vrindavan, one must have sufficient knowledge of the Shastras, that is the Vedic literatures. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.12, Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. This means that devotional service is acquired from Vedic knowledge. Tach Shraddha Dhanaha Munayaha. Devotees who are actually serious attain bhakti scientific devotional service by hearing Vedic literature, bhaktya shruta grihitaya. It is not that one should create something out of sentimentality, become a sahajya and advocate such concocted devotional service. However, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur considered such sahajyas to be more favorable than the impersonalists, who are hopelessly atheistic. The impersonalists have no idea of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The position of the sahajyas is far better than that of the Mayavadi sannyasis. Although the sahajyas do not think much of Vedic knowledge, they nonetheless have accepted Lord Krishna as the Supreme Lord. Unfortunately, they mislead others from authentic devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada is telling us the hierarchy, that how all of us are on a journey on the path of bhakti. Some of us are atheistic. Atheistic are on the lowest rung. Then come the actually Mayavadi as well, in the same sort of rung, because they don't even believe in the existence of the Lord. Sahajiyas, Prabhupada says, they are better, at least they have accepted Krishna. And then, of course, the people who are on the Gyan Marg, and the topmost are the ones on the Bhakti Marg who have accepted Krishna to be supreme and who are trying to engage in the service of Krishna in any, falling in any of the Navvidhas, any one of the 9 processes. So we shouldn't get disheartened. Once we have opened the account of our bhakti, we have started our journey towards Krishna. And in chapter 8 as well of Bhagavad Gita, similarly Prabhupada in his purport explains these to us, especially in the verses 8.5, 6, 7 and 12. The progression to the bhakti, Krishna tells to Arjun, and actually it is for all of us, the jivas of the Kali Yuga. Especially in this Kali Yuga, we are so blessed that we had Lord Caitanya who came, and in all other Kali Yugas, Krishna never comes as Lord Caitanya in the mood of his highest devotee, Srimati Radharani, the topmost of the gopis. So we have got everything actually laid in front of us to do the right bhakti. Everything is there. We have got the gurus in the disciplic succession, and who have given us gurus like our own ISKCON founder Srila Prabhupada, who has given us the translation, not just the translation of the scriptures, but the purpose as well, and it is available in all the languages. So we should try our best. When we try our best, Krishna does opens the doors for us to embark on our bhakti or to advance wherever we are. Verse number 35, Hari Bhakti Vilasa Ar Bhagavatamrita Dashama Tippani Ar Dashama Charita. So, like I always say, that there's so many words in these Bengali verses as well. They're similar to Hindi and Sanskrit. Tippani. Tippani is the special commentary one does. So, Dashama Tippani means comments on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the context of this verse. Translation: some of the books compiled by Srila Sanatana Goswami were the Hari Bhakt Vilas, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Dashama Tippani and Dasham Charita. Purport: in the first wave of the book known as Bhakti Ratnakar, it is said that Sanatana Goswami understood Srimad Bhagavatam by thorough study and explained it in his commentary known as Vaishnav Toshani. In all the knowledge that Sri Sanatana Goswami and Rup Goswami directly acquired from Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu was broadcast all over the world by their expert service. Sanatana Goswami gave his Vaishnav Toshani commentary to Srila Jiva Goswami for editing, and Srila Jiva Goswami edited this under the name of Laghu Toshani. Whatever he immediately put down in writing was finished in the year 1476 Shaka, which is AD 1554. Srila Jiva Goswami completed the Laghu Toshani in the year Shakabda 1504 AD, 1582. The subject matter of the Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sri Sanatan Goswami was collected by Srila Gopal Bhatt Goswami and is known as Vaishnav Smriti. And we just had the appearance day of Gopal Bhatt Goswami this week. This Vaishnav Smriti Granth was finished in 20 chapters known as Vilasas. In the first Vilas, there is a description of how a relationship is established between the spiritual master and the disciple, and mantras are explained. In the second Vilas, the process of initiation is described. In the third Vilas, the methods of Vaishnava behavior are given, with emphasis on cleanliness, constant remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the chanting of mantras given by the initiating spiritual master. In the fourth Vilas are descriptions of samskar, the reformatory method, tilak, puja, worship, the application of 12 tilaks on the 12 places of the body, mudra, marks on the body, mala, chanting with beads, and Guru Puja, worship of the spiritual master. In the fifth Vilas, one is instructed on how to make a place to sit for meditation, and there are descriptions of breathing exercises, meditation and worship of the Shalagram Shilap representation of Lord Vishnu. In the sixth Vilas, the required practices for inviting the transcendental form of the Lord and bathing him are given. In the seventh Vilas, one is instructed on how to collect flowers used for the worship of Lord Vishnu. In the eighth Vilas, there is a description of the deity and instructions on how to set up incense, light lamps, make offerings, dance, play music, beat drums, garland the deity, offer prayers and obeisances, and counteract offenses. In the ninth Vilas, there are descriptions about collecting tulasi leaves, offering oblations to forefathers according to Vaishnava rituals, and offering food. In the 10th Vilas, there are descriptions of the devotees of Lord, Vaishnavas or saintly persons. In the 11th Vilas, there are elaborate descriptions of deity worship and the glories of the holy name of the Lord. One is instructed on how to chant the holy name of the deity, and there are discussions about offenses committed while chanting the holy name, along with methods for getting relief from such offenses. There are also descriptions of the glories of devotional service and the surrendering process. In the 12th Vilas, Ekadashi is described. In the 13th Vilas, fasting is discussed, as well as observance of the Mahadvadashi ceremony. In the 14th Vilas, different duties for different months are outlined. In the 15th Vilas, there are instructions on how to observe Ekadashi fasting without even drinking water. There are also descriptions of branding the body with the symbols of Vishnu, discussions of Chaturmasya observations during the rainy season, and discussions of Janmashtami, Parshava Ekadashi, Shravana Dwadashi, Rama Navami, and Vijaya Dashmi. The 16th Vilas discusses duties to be observed in the month of Kartik, which is October or November, or the Damodar month, or Urja, when lamps are offered in the deity room or above the temple. There are also descriptions of Govardhan Puja and Rath Yatra. The 17th Vilas discusses preparations for deity worship, Mahamantra chanting, and the process of japa. In the 18th Vilas, the different forms of Sri Vishnu are described. The 19th Vilas discusses the establishment of the deity and the rituals observed in bathing the deity before installation. And finally, the 12th Vilas discusses the construction of temples, referring to those constructed by the great devotees. The details of the Hari Bhakti Vilas Grantha are given by Sri Kaviraj Goswami in the Madhya Lila, 24th chapter, verses 329 to 345. The descriptions given in those verses by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami are actually a description of those portions compiled by Gopal Bhatt Goswami. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the regulative principles of devotional service compiled by Gopal Bhatt Goswami do not strictly follow our Vaishnava principles. Actually, Gopal Bhatt Goswami collected only a summary of the elaborate descriptions of Vaishnava regulative principles from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. It is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami's opinion, however, that to follow the Hari Bhakti Vilas strictly is to actually follow the Vaishnav rituals in perfect order. He claims that the Smartha Samaj, which is strictly followed by caste Brahmins, has influenced portions that Gopal Bhatta Goswami collected from the original Hari Bhakti Vilas. It is therefore very difficult to find out Vaishnav directions from the book of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. It is better to consult the commentary made by Sanatan Goswami himself for the Hari Bhakti Vilas under the name of Digdarshini Tika. Some say that the same commentary was compiled by Gopinath Puja Adhikari, who was engaged in the service of Sri Radha Ramanji and who happened to be one of the disciples of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Regarding the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there are two parts, both of which deal with the discharge of devotional service. The first part is an analytical study of devotional service, in which there is also a description of different planets, including the earth, the heavenly planets, Brahmalok and Vaikunthalok. There are also descriptions of the devotees, including intimate devotees, most intimate devotees, and complete devotees. The second part describes the glories of the spiritual world known as Golok Mahatmya Nirupana, as well as the process of renunciation of the material world. It also describes real knowledge, devotional service, the spiritual world, love of Godhead, attainment of life's destination, and the bliss of the world. In this way, there are 7 chapters in each part, 14 chapters in all. The Dasham Tippani is a commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Another name for this commentary is Brihad Vaishnav Toshani Tika. In the Bhakti Ratnakar, it is said, sorry, my page has just flipped over. Let me get back onto the page. Yeah. So we're saying that the Dasham Tippani is a commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Another name for this commentary is Brihad Vaishnav Toshani Tika in the Bhakti Ratnakar. It is said that Dasham Tippani was finished in 1476 Shakabda, which is AD 1554. So as we know that Radha Damodar temple is the temple where Prabhupada spent most of his time when he took sannyas in Vrindavan. And Radha Damodar is the place. I was hearing a seminar by His Holiness Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj. He was giving seminar on the six Goswami, the mastermind of Bhakti. And he was telling how in the Damodar temple, actually all the Goswamis would get together. They would discuss what they're writing and sometimes each one of them would ask other one. So one Goswami would ask the other Goswami to write something. And then they had their bhajan kutirs, and after meeting together they would just go solitary into their own bhajan kutirs, meditate and then write. So Radha Damodar temple is a very, very important place where actually these 6 Goswamis, they had meditated and they had discussed so much and then written as well. And our own founder Acharya, he also wrote so much. And as we know that Rupa Goswami used to give him direct inspiration in that temple. Verse number 36. E Sabha Grantha Kaila Goshani Sanatana Rupa Gosani Kaila Yata Ke Karu Ganana. Ganana, as we know, in Hindi also it means count, and in Bengali as well it means count. We have already given the names of 4 books compiled by Sanatan Goswami. Similarly, Srila Rupa Goswami has also compiled many books which no one can even count. Verse number 37. Pradhan Kichu Kariye Ganana Laksha Granthe Kaila Vraja Vilasa Varnana. Varnan is description. I shall therefore enumerate the chief books compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. He has described the pastimes of Vrindavan in 100,000 verses. Verse number 38. Rasamrita Sindhu Ar Vidgadha Madhava Ujjwala Neelamani Ar Lalita Madhava. The books compiled by Sri Rupa Goswami include the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Vidagdha Madhav, Ujjwal Neelamani and Lalit Madhav. Verses 39 and 40, they are together. Danakeli Kaumudi Arabahu Satvavali Ashtadasha Lila Chand Ar Padyavali Govind Virudavali Tahar Lakshana Mathura Mahatmaya Aran Nataka Varanana. Srila Rupa Goswami also compiled the Danakeli Kaumudi, Stvavali, Leela Chanda, Padyavali, Govind Virudavali, Mathura Mahatmaya and Natak Varanana. Verse number 41. Lagu Bhagavatamrat Adi Kekaru Ganana Sarvatra Karila Vraja Vilas Varnana. We can count the rest of the books headed by Lagu Bhagavatamrita, written by Srila Rupa Goswami. He has described the pastimes of Vrindavan in all of them. The purport goes like this. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has given a description of these books. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a great book of instructions on how to develop devotional service to Lord Krishna and follow the transcendental process. It was finished in the year 1463 Shakabda, which corresponds to the AD 1541. This book is divided into 4 parts: Purva Vibhag, which is the eastern division; Dakshin Vibhag, which is the southern division; Paschim Vibhag, which is the western division; and Uttar Vibhag, which is the northern division. In the Purva Vibhag, there is a description of the permanent development of the devotional service, the general principles of devotional service, the execution of devotional service, ecstasy in devotional service, and ultimately the attainment of love of Godhead are described. In this way, there are 4 laharis or the waves in this division of the ocean of the nectar of devotion. In the Dakshin Vibhag, which is a southern division, there is a general description of the mellow, which is relationship, called Bhakti Rasa, which is derived from the devotional service. There are also descriptions of the stages known as Vibhav, Anubhav, Sattvika, Vyabhichari and Sthai Bhav, all on this high platform of devotional service. Thus, there are 5 waves in the Dakshin Vibhag division. In the western division, Paschim Vibhag, there is a description of the chief transcendental humours derived from the devotional service. These are known as Mukhya Bhakti Rasa Nirupana, or attainment of the chief humours or feelings in the execution of devotional service. In that part, there is a description of devotional service in neutrality, further development in love and affection called servitude, further development in fraternity, further development in parenthood or parental love, and finally conjugal love between Krishna and his devotees. Thus, there are 5 waves in the western division. In the northern division, Uttar Vibhag, there is description of the indirect mellows of the devotional service, namely devotional service in laughter, devotional service in wonder, and devotional service in chivalry, pity, anger, dread, and ghastliness. There are also mixing of mellows and the transgression of different humours. Thus, there are 9 waves in this part. This is but a brief outline of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The Vidgad Madhav is a drama of Lord Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Srila Rupa Goswami finished this book in the year 1454 Shakabda, which is AD 1532. The first part of this drama is called Venu Nad Vilas. The second part, Manmatha Lekha. The third part, Radha Sangha. The fourth part, Venu Harana. The fifth part, Radha Prasadana. The sixth part, Sharad Vihar, and 7th and last part, Gauri Vihar. There is also a book called Ujjwal Neelamani, a transcendental account of loving affairs that includes metaphor, analogy, and higher bhakti sentiments. Devotional service and conjugal love is described briefly in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but it is very elaborately discussed in the Ujjwal Neelamani. This book describes different types of lovers, their assistants, and those who are very dear to Krishna. There is also a description of Srimati Radharani and other female lovers, as well as various group leaders, messengers, and the constant associates, as well as others who are very dear to Krishna, are all described. The book also relates how love of Krishna is awakened and describes the ecstatic situation, the devotional situation, permanent ecstasy, disturbed ecstasy, steady ecstasy, different positions of different dresses, feelings of separation, prior attraction, anger in attraction, varieties of loving affairs, separation from the beloved, meeting with the beloved, and both direct and indirect enjoyment between the lover and the beloved. All this has been very elaborately described. Similarly, the Lalit Madhav is a description of Krishna's pastime in Dwarka. These pastimes were made into drama, and the work was finished in the year 1459 Shakabda. The first part deals with the festivities in the evening, the second with the killings of the Shankachur, the third with maddened Srimati Radharani, the fourth with Radharani's proceeding toward Krishna, and fifth with the achievement of Chandravali, the sixth with the achievement of Lalita, the seventh with the meeting of Navavrindavan, the eighth with the enjoyment in Navavrindavan, and ninth with looking over pictures, and the 10th with complete satisfaction of the mind. Thus the entire drama is divided into 10 parts. The Laghu Bhagavatamrita is divided into 2 parts. The first is called the Nectar of Krishna, and the second the Nectar of Devotional Service. The importance of Vedic evidence is stressed in the first part and is followed by a description of the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Sri Krishna, and descriptions of his pastimes and expansions in Swamsha, which is the personal forms, and Vibhinamsha according to the different absorptions. The incarnations are called Avesha and Tad Ekatma. The first incarnation is divided into 3 Purushavataras, namely Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and Kshirodakshai Vishnu. Then there are 3 incarnations of the mode of nature, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, and Maheshwara, which is Shiva. So the 3 incarnations of the modes of nature are Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. All the paraphernalia used in the service of the Lord is transcendental. Beyond the 3 qualities of the material world, there is also a description of 25 lila avatars, namely Chatursana, the Kumars, Narad, Varaha, Matsya, Yagya, Naranarayan, Rishi, Kapila, Dattatreya, Hayagriva, Hamsa, Prishni-garbha, Rishabha, Prithu, Nrisimha, Kurma, Dhanvantari, Mohini, Vamana, Parshuram, Dashrathi, Krishna Dvaipanya, Balaram, Vasudev, Buddha, and Kalki. There are also 14 Manvantar incarnations: Yagya, Vibhu, Satyasena, Hari, Vaikuntha, Ajita, Vamana, Sarvabhauma, Rishab, Vishwaksena, Dharmsetu, Sudama, Yogeshwar, and Brihad Bhanu. There are also 4 incarnations for the 4 yugas, and their colors are described as white, red, blackish, and black, sometimes yellow, as in the case of Lord Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. There are different types of millenniums and incarnations for those millenniums. The categories called Avesha, Prabhava, Vaibhava, and Para constitute different situations for the different incarnations according to specific pastimes. The names are spiritually empowered. There are also descriptions of the difference between the powerful and the power and the inconceivable activities of the Supreme Lord. Shri Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one is greater than him. He is the source of all incarnations. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, there are descriptions of his partial incarnations, a description of the impersonal Brahman effulgence, actually the bodily effulgence of Shri Krishna it is, as Prabhupada is also telling us, the super excellence of Shri Krishna pastimes as an ordinary human being with 2 hands, and so forth. There is nothing to compare with the 2-armed form of the Lord. In the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Jagat, there is no distinction between the owner of the body and the body itself. In the material world, the owner of the body is called the soul, the body is called the material manifestation. In the Vaikuntha world, however, there is no such distinction. Lord Shri Krishna is unborn and his appearance as an incarnation is perpetual. Krishna's pastimes are divided into two parts, manifest and unmanifest. For example, when Krishna takes his birth within the material world, his pastimes are considered to be manifest. However, when he disappears, one should not think that he is finished, for his pastimes are going on in an unmanifest form. Varieties of humors, however, are enjoyed by the devotees and Lord Krishna during his manifest pastimes. After all, his pastimes in Mathura, Vrindavan and Dwarka are eternal and are going on perpetually somewhere in some part of the universe. Verse number 42, Tanra Bhratash Putra Nama Shri Jiva Goshani Yat Bhakti Grantha Kaila Tar Antanai. Shri Rupa Goswami's nephew Srila Jiva Goswami has compiled so many books on devotional service that there is no counting them. And they say to understand the books written by Srila Jiva Goswami, it is like you are trying to study something of the standard of the PhD of the PhD of the PhD. Verse number 43, Shri Bhagavata Sandarbha Nam Grantha Vistar Bhakti Siddhantera Tate Dekhaye Chena Par. In Shri Bhagavad Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami has written conclusively about the ultimate end of the devotional service. Purport: the Bhagavad Sandarbha is also known as Shat Sandarbha. In the first part called Tattva Sandarbha, it is proved that Srimad Bhagavatam is the most authoritative evidence directly pointing to the absolute truth. The second Sandarbha called Bhagavad Sandarbha draws a distinction between impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma and describes the spiritual world and the domination of the mode of goodness devoid of contamination by the other two material modes. In other words, there is a vivid description of the transcendental position known as Shuddha Sattva. Material goodness is apt to be contaminated by the other two material qualities, namely ignorance and passion. But when one is situated in the Shuddha Sattva position, there is no chance for such contamination. It is a spiritual platform of pure goodness. The potency of the Supreme Lord and the living entity is also described, and there is a description of the inconceivable energies and varieties of energies of the Lord. The potencies are divided into categories: internal, external, personal, marginal, and so forth. There are also discussions of the eternality of deity worship, the omnipotence of the deity, his all-pervasiveness, his giving shelter to everyone, his subtle and gross potencies, his personal manifestations, his expression of form, quality, and pastimes, his transcendental position, and his complete form. It is also stated that everything pertaining to the Absolute has the same potency, and that the spiritual world, the associates in the spiritual world, and threefold energies of the Lord in the spiritual world are all transcendental. There are further discussions concerning the differences between the impersonal Brahman and the personality of Godhead, the fullness of the personality of Godhead, the objective of all the Vedic knowledge, the personal potencies of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead as the original author of Vedic knowledge. The third Sandarbha is called Paramatma Sandarbha, and in this book there is a description of Paramatma, the Super Soul, and an explanation of how the Super Soul exists in millions and millions of living entities. There are discussions of the differences between the qualitative incarnations and discourses concerning the living entities, Maya, the material world, the theory of transformation, the illusory energy, the sameness of this world, and the Super Soul, and the truth about the material world. In this connection, the opinions of Sridhar Goswami are given. It is stated that Supreme Personality of Godhead, although devoid of material qualities, superintends all material activities. There is also discussion of how the lila avatars incarnations respond to the desires of the devotees, and how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is characterized by the six opulences. The fourth Sandarbha is called Krishna Sandarbha, and in this book Krishna is proved to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are discussions of Krishna's pastimes and qualities, his superintendence of the Purusha avatars, and so forth. The opinions of Sridhar Swami are corroborated in each and every scripture. The supremacy of Krishna is stressed. Baladev, Sankarshan, and other expansions of Krishna are emanations of Mahasankarshan. All the incarnations and expansions exist simultaneously in the body of Krishna, who is described as two-handed. There are also description of Golok planet, Vrindavan, the eternal place of Krishna, the identity of Golok and Vrindavan, the Yadavs and the cowherd boys, both eternal associates of Krishna, the equality of the manifest and unmanifest pastimes, Sri Krishna's manifestation in Gokul, the queens of Dwarka as expansions of eternal potency, and superior to them the super excellent gopis. There is also a list of gopis' names and discussion of the topmost position of Srimati Radharani. The fifth Sandarbh is called Bhakti Sandarbh, and in this book there is discussion of how devotional service can be directly executed and how such service can be adjusted either directly or indirectly. There is a discussion of the knowledge of all kinds of scriptures, the establishment of the Vedic institution of Varnashram, bhakti as superior to fruitive activity, and so forth. It is also stated that without devotional service, even a Brahman is condemned. There are discussions of the process of Karam Tyag, the giving of the results of karma to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the practices of mystic yoga and philosophical speculation, which are deprecated as simply hard labor. Worship of the demigods is discouraged, and worship of Vaishnavas is encouraged, exalted. No respect is given to the non-devotees. There are discussions on how one can be liberated even in this life, Jivan Mukt, which is Lord Shiva as a devotee, and how a bhakta and his devotional service are eternally existing. It is stated that through bhakti one can attain all success because bhakti is transcendental to the material qualities. There is a discussion of how the self is manifest through bhakti. There is also a discussion of the self's bliss, as well as how bhakti, even imperfectly executed, enables one to attain the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unmotivated devotional service is highly praised, and explanation is given on how each devotee can achieve the platform of unmotivated service by association with other devotees. There is discussion of the differences between the Mahabhagavat and the ordinary devotee, the symptoms of philosophical speculation, the symptoms of self-worship or ahangra or pasana, the symptoms of devotional service, the symptoms of imaginary perfection, the acceptance of regulative principles, service to the spiritual master, the Mahabhagavat liberated devotee, and service to him, service to Vaishnavas in general, the principles of hearing, chanting, remembering, and serving the lotus feet of Lord, offenses in the worship, offensive effects, prayers, engaging oneself as an eternal servant of the Lord, making friendship with the Lord, and surrendering everything for his pleasure. There is also discussion of Raganuga Bhakti, the spontaneous love of Godhead, or the specific purpose of becoming a devotee of Lord Krishna, and a comparative study of other perfectional stages. The sixth Sandarbha is called the Preeti Sandarbha, a thesis on love of Godhead. Here it is stated that through love of Godhead one becomes perfectly liberated and attains the highest goal of life. A distinction is made between the liberated condition of a personalist and that of an impersonalist, and there is a discussion of liberation during one's lifetime as distinguished from liberation from material bondage. Of all kinds of liberations, liberation in loving service to the Lord is described as the most exalted, and meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face is shown to be the highest perfection of life. Immediate liberation is contrasted with liberation by a gradual process. Both realizations of Brahman and meeting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead are described as liberation within one's lifetime. But meeting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, both internally and externally, is shown to be super excellent, above the transcendental realization of the Brahman effulgence. There is a comparative study of the liberation as Salokya, Samipya, and Sarupya. Samipya is better than Salokya. Devotional service is considered to be liberation with greater facilities, and there is discussion of how to obtain it. There are also discussions of the transcendental state one achieves after attaining the devotional platform, which is the exact position of love of Godhead, the marginal symptoms of transcendental love, and how it is awakened, the distinction between so-called love and transcendental love on the platform of love of Godhead, and different types of humors and mellows enjoyed in relishing the lusty affairs of the gopis. which are different from mundane affairs, which in turn are symbolical representations of pure love of Krishna. There are also discussions of bhakti mixed with philosophical speculation, the super excellence of the love of the gopis, the difference between opulent devotional service and loving devotional service, the exalted position of the residents of Gokul, the progressively exalted position of the friends of Krishna, the Gopas, the gopis in parental love with Krishna, and finally the super excellence of the love of the gopis and that of Srimati Radharani. There is also a discussion of how spiritual feelings can be present when one simply imitates them, and how such mellows are far superior to the ordinary mellows of mundane love. And there are descriptions of different ecstasies, the awakening of ecstasy, transcendental qualities, the distinction of dhiro dat and almost attractiveness of conjugal love, the ecstatic features, the permanent ecstatic feature, the mellows divided in 5 transcendental features of direct loving service and indirect loving service considered in 7 divisions. Finally, there is discussion of overlapping of different rasas, and there are discussions of shanta, which is neutrality, servitorship, taking shelter, parental love, conjugal love, direct transcendental enjoyment and enjoyment in separation, previous attraction, and the glories of Srimati Radharani. So we will continue our reading from verse 44 next time. Wish you all a very happy Makar Sankranti. The sun moves to the Uttarayan, and also we had Lodi, Pongal, Bogi, and has got so many different names in different parts of the country, which was in India, which was yesterday. And I hope that you all had a very blissful time wherever you are. I wish you all a very blessed weekend. And of course, this year 2023 has already come almost, we have traveled almost half of it already. So I hope you are steady in your bhakti, and you're enjoying the bhakti in the association of the devotees, and you are sharing whatever you have learned with others. Because when we repeat what we have learned, it reinforces our learning, and nothing pleases Krishna more than sharing the holy name with others. So thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai.